Hi, everybody, and welcome to Patriots Law Group Live. We are here always to talk about legal strategies in a military divorce, and we are back again with another topic to help you navigate your military divorce if you are an active duty service person, a veteran, or you are a military spouse. We have this week's topic, protecting your rights. 5 key things to know about disability in a military divorce. And we are one person down. Pat Hughes is not with us, but of course we have the amazing Mike Lyons, who specializes in military divorce law. So welcome, Mike. We're going to be diving into this amazing topic to help our listeners out there or anybody who's going to be watching the replay on this one. So are you ready for this big topic?
Yeah, I sure am. Good to see you, Maureen. And I guess Pat's Christmas vacation, huh?
He could be. Maybe he's skiing in the Alps. Who knows? Spending some family time, making us maybe jealous, but we just don't know for sure where he's at.
All right. Well, I'm happy to give these 5 key facts and think they might be helpful to
all right. Well, let's get started.
All right, yeah. So we're talking about disability in a military divorce, and that's a topic that is really a complex one. It's totally, we're talking about federal benefits, and the states have no authority over them, and that's created some recent case law and some variance in how different states do things. And so really these 5 things I wanted to use to highlight for, as you said, service members or military spouses to have an idea of what they need to be thinking about and working through. So the first one, and we've mentioned this in some of our podcasts before, but just so we have a good starting point, is a service member's military disability pay has the possibility of reducing a former spouse's retirement pay. And, you might think, well, how are the two related? And here's how that works. The service member serves 20 years. They're entitled to a retirement, and it's called longevity retirement or pay, just to keep these things straight. And so they're entitled to some amount, and that very clearly is marital property, and a court very easily and under the law may divide that between the military spouse and the non-military spouse. What happens, though, is subsequent to that, the service member gets VA disability, a very common thing that happens. Any injury, any limitation on a service member's physical abilities after serving are going to be considered compensatory if they fit certain criteria. And frankly, these days, I don't know anybody that could serve 20 years and not get some form of VA disability with the way that they do the ratings now. And dollar for dollar, the VA disability that's awarded reduces the longevity pay. So what you're left with is the former spouse, if they're entitled to 50 cents of each of those dollars, they lost 50 cents, and the service member on the other side still got the whole dollar, right? They're only entitled to 50 cents of the first dollar, but now they get the whole dollar from the VA disability. So knowing that really should open up the aperture of what you need to be looking for and considering with disability when it comes up. So know that right out of the gate. If there's VA disability, it may reduce a former spouse's share. The reason why I say may rather than will is there's some other federal statutes out there, and I won't go into the depth right now, but that say at certain levels, it may not be so that the former spouses and the longevity pay are going to be reduced. That carries me over to number 2, and I'm going to talk about 2 of those federal statutes. The first is concurrent disability retirement pay. And what it says is if the service member's VA disability rating is 50% or higher, then that waiver and that reduction I was talking about isn't going to happen. If it's less than 50%, it is going to happen. So, it's all completely at the mercy of the VA, and the service member and the former spouse can't say or do much about it. And that's just a product of the way the federal law was written, which really says we want to give VA disability to service members, and it's not touchable by any court or anything like that. So be aware that if there is this waiver, then your next question is, well, how much is the VA disability rating? What would I do as a divorce attorney in a case to sort of consider these things is, first, I'm going to ask, do you have any VA disability? If the answer is no, then I might ask, do you have any disability? Because then there could be in the future, right, VA disability. And then I'm going to ask what percentage. And knowing those different facts enables me, in my cases, to sort of plan in the best way possible. Another military program, though, or disability program, doesn't protect the former spouse. And this is called the Combat Related Specialty Compensation, CRSC. And it's something a service member can, from year to year, change which program that they're in. And so this one is hard not to go into the weeds when talking about it. So I'm just going to highlight it. I'm just going to say, whenever you're involved in a military divorce, figure out which one of these statutes would apply in your case. And the biggest tip for the second statute is it has to be a combat related injury. So if someone didn't ever go to combat, it wouldn't be an issue. Am I saying this clearly, Maureen? You feeling pretty comfortable with how it's...
But I'm wondering, if you're in 20 years and you haven't gone to combat, how are you getting these injuries? I would think it would be because you have served in some capacity that's how you're getting the injuries. I guess they're trying to distinguish. I guess if you've had a desk job and you tripped over a chair, that's an injury, right? So I guess it's the seriousness. I mean, if you've gone deaf because you've been in combat, that serves as a different type of injury. So their scales must be all over the place, and they're very, very specific of these. So these ratings are very specific. That's what I'm getting out of this.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the combat one, you'll know if you're injured in combat. A lot of people this day and age sort of may or may have a job that takes them to combat or doesn't take them to combat. And it would be on special sort of criteria. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a complex, you can have multiple ratings that stack up to be worth more than 100, but then be rated at 70. And so it's just a complex web. The biggest thing that lawyers and parties need to know is just ask for the award letter. Say, what have you been awarded for disability? When you're trying to do it prospectively, just kind of trying to gauge or to guess, is this person likely to get disability? That's harder. That's really an art that's really imprecise. But just knowing these issues to know, whoa, okay, service member came back from deployment and is now in a wheelchair, more likely than not, you may not want to be arguing you should get half of the military pension if it has not yet started. You want to be arguing for half of something else that's comparable to the value of half of the military pension. Maybe it's alimony of a comparable amount to what your share would have been under the military pension. We get into some murky waters with that, but that's how my mind starts to turn when I have that fact pattern. So being able to issue spot the disability and the impact is the biggest thing. And this tip number 3 is something that is really important to know, because if you haven't gone through this before, if you're an attorney that hasn't done this before, then you think, okay, well, like Mike just said, let's just say if it ever goes down then every dollar it goes down, you get $1 of alimony right back up. Bada bing, right? Well, there's a case that came out of the Supreme Court and some other state Supreme Courts that say no, because what you're effectively doing, court, is you're saying that half of the disability pay is always going to go to the spouse, right? I mean, because we're saying we're trying to give this VA disability pay to the soldier or the sailor or the airman, whomever, exclusively. So when you say, hey, because you got VA disability and the federal law says your military pension goes down, that now you have to give half of that VA disability, that's not at all what we think, talking about Congress. And so it's not, and there's some creative ways, and a couple attorneys and I have sort of been trying to think through, what might work, at least with the law in Maryland. But we have a case right now in Maryland that says, no, attorneys in Maryland should consider military pensions for spouses as basically highly unreliable. Don't bank on it as this is your money, as the amount that you're getting on the day of the divorce is not the amount of money that you're going to get for the rest of your life, because that's just not what a military pension is, because of these disability statutes and how they all interplay. And they say, we don't make the rules, the federal government does, but we're going to play by them. And therefore, you all, practitioners and parties, should start planning on what is this military pension worth with those variables baked in, basically there's these risks that need to be calculated in. And so really what we do, or what the appropriate way to really resolve this, is to get a pension valuation, and to say this pension with all of those variables and so forth is worth X dollars, and then go somewhere else across the assets of the parties and find those dollars and say, we want these, we don't want that. That's what that case says. I'll tell you though, most attorneys and most parties still say, well, I'll still take the military pension, because there's a lot of cost and a lot of questions surrounding how to do that. But again, this is just an issue spotting. What we want to do today is just have people understand what they need to consider. So at the very least, they're not assuming one thing, maybe giving a bunch because I want that military pension, I want my share, only to find out that this disability kicks in and now suddenly they're frozen out and they've given up stuff and they don't have much from what they thought they would get.
I think this is really important because I think this is going to be a huge shocker for people. So I think you're bringing something to their attention. This is a big learning moment. This is a big aha thing that I think we should really highlight, because this is not something that's on the radar. But I have a question here, is that if they know about the pension and then the disability is also noted all at once while they're going through the divorce, and then, okay, here's what it is, we'll go ahead and move forward, make these decisions with you, right? But what happens if the disability is not discovered until maybe 3 or 4 years after the divorce has been decided? Do you have to now regroup and then start deciding on what the assets look like, and that the military divorced spouse now has to agree to a reduction in a pension that they have already agreed to?
Yeah. Here's how it works. Once the divorce has occurred, and I can only really, my main practice is here in Maryland, so I'm going to limit what I'm saying here to Maryland. Other states may have some different things. But once a divorce has occurred, jurisdiction for the court to say, I'm going to give you more of the 401k, or I'm going to give you the Sierra or the Tacoma truck, whatever. That's done. I mean, it's considered final and finished. So then we get past the divorce, which is your question, and now something changes, and that's the disability. And what will happen is the federal statutes basically are written, and Uncle Sam says, if I give you one of these dollars, I'm going to give you less of these longevity dollars. So it happens automatically where its accounting system says we gave them $1 of VA, so now we're going to subtract $1 of longevity. And the courts can only, unless they valued it and traded it, like I was mentioning earlier, the courts are creating just a percentage split. So early in the divorce, they'd say 25% of whatever is the former spouse's, and the 75% remaining portion is the military service member. So if that's a large pizza pie, then the spouse is getting 25%. After the VA disability, and it's now a small pizza pie, the spouse is 25% just or naturally, with nobody needing to go back to court or anything, is less because it's 25% of if, as, and when the military member receives pension money. So what some people try to do, and again, this case law has really made this a murky situation, is they might say, well, we're going to say that there's $1 of alimony, and then that allows us to go into court, so this jurisdiction issue is no longer in play. And then we're going to say to the court, hey, this doesn't seem right nor fair. Service member still has all their money and maybe some more, and we're out in the cold. And in that scenario, the court now at least has a mechanism to review the situation, and could give some relief if it felt the party's financial condition was unfair, and they need to be adjusted somehow. But even there, based on Supreme Court case law, it's not a dollar for dollar. So they can't just say you lost 50, there's 50. It could possibly and reasonably say his situation's this and your situation's that, so I'm going to give you 20, because I think that gets things readjusted. There's no good rules or answers here. This isn't a science or a math kind of problem. It's really trying to work through some ambiguity and planning. It's like battle planning. You sort of have a plan going into it, but if the other side, does something to neutralize it, you may be a little bit at the mercy of these federal statutes. So knowing that allows you to protect yourself, and that's what we're really hoping to do. To your point, even if VA disability, so this is my fourth tip, even if VA disability was in place at the time of the divorce, it can go up and it can go down. So somebody might have a 10% rating, let's say, because they strained their knee or they had knee pain, just sort of very basic. And then subsequently they need a knee replacement and it's all determined to be tied to it. Then, that rating might go from 10% on up to 35, or excuse me, it goes in 10, so 30 or 40%. Well, in that scenario, the former spouse's share got smaller, either through no fault of their own and through no participation or right to object. It just is the way that this system works. It can go down too. I would say I don't see it going down much, but sleep apnea used to be a higher percentage than it is now. So, in theory, you get a surgery, you suffer from all this pain, maybe back pain, and a new medical solution comes up and you start using it and you don't have any pain, you might lose your disability rating. So that's an interesting aspect of this too. And then here's, I think this is a shorter area because I think there's less, it's so fact specific from all of our other discussions to say, this is what we do in every case, or this is what you should consider doing in your case. So this discussion is a little bit shorter, but the fifth thing is know that VA disability isn't showing up on the tax return. It isn't showing up on a W-2. There's no tax documents related to it. If you don't specifically ask for it and specifically make sure it's there, you might not even consider it. I've seen cases where people say, tell us about all of your income. And they're like, well, here's my W-2, here's all my tax returns, here's all my pay stubs. And if you don't think, maybe they served in the military long ago, and you don't even think about it, and you just sort of steam along, you might miss $3,000 in untaxed income to a person. I mean, these are really big numbers sometimes, $3,000-4,000 a month, I'm saying, in VA disability. And so it's critical that a former spouse run this to ground, asking a question, do you get it? And if they say no, okay, you can rely on, if they're lying, there's some remedies there. If they say yes, then say, I need to have it. I can't rely on what you're saying. I only want to look at what you're getting. And I've seen people have this money that goes into a separate account at a separate bank, and it's really just off the books. You can't find it anywhere unless you sort of grab somebody by the hide and say, do you have it? Yes, show it to me, and go to the court when they don't. So really unique aspects to military and VA disability that need to be considered, and not just given a real broad brush or it's not that important, it will work itself out type of treatment.
Again, this is one of those nuances that adds to the complexity of a military divorce. Again, this is the reason why we are putting out these resources for people, so they can gain the education, just gain the insight, and be able to make themselves more informed. This is, a service that Patriots Law Group is providing, so great information. So I think we're up to number 5. Oh, go ahead. What are you going to say?
I think we got through 5, but I was going to make the final point that, more and more we have attorneys that we train different bar associations and so forth on this, but we'll have attorneys who will reach out to us just specifically to help identify issues, kind of like we're talking here, in their specific cases. So we'll get on the phone with their clients and say, okay, when was the service? When was this? What is that? And just really understand the case, and then provide an advice letter. And, disability is one area. And I think I had a case once where somebody had a civilian, the other party had a civilian pension and a reserve retirement pension. And by really understanding sort of the reserve retirement system and the disability issues and all of that, my ultimate conclusion was, the period of overlap between the marriage and the military service, which again was reservist, so it's only a fraction of a year, versus the period of overlap with the civilian pension, which you get credit for every single day. I actually said, you know what? I don't know if they really are seeing it, or they'll really see the value of what I would suggest, but maybe you just go ahead and say, give me 2 extra years on your civilian pension, because you're getting 365 times 2, rather than the 2 years of your military pension. And a lot of times people are like, yeah, don't touch my military pension if you're a service member. But it's because it wasn't 365 for those 2. It was basically like 50 days worth of time for those 2 years. And so we'll do those sorts of things because we can see some of these issues and occasionally some of these angles, and do that on a consulting basis for the attorney who doesn't have military background, or for the client that wants to have a little better specialty or specialized knowledge on the case.
One quick question about that. Are you able, because you specialize in more Maryland, Virginia, more like the Washington DMV area, are you able to assist people out of state for that? Only because I have a lot of military veteran connections in this area, and I had somebody reach out to me for somebody in Florida, and I'm like, their jurisdiction kind of is this, but if somebody needed your help, a civilian attorney in Florida or, Michigan or whatever, you can assist them as a consultant for them, even though you don't practice law there. Am I correct about that?
Yes. So all of these federal issues we're talking about are federal benefits. So what I can bring to the fight there is my understanding of the federal law and the military regulations and systems, and particularly because there's another attorney involved in this that's doing it in the state, I absolutely can assist. Yes.
Absolutely. That is so good to know for people out there, because it's not the state legal that you have to worry about. That's their specialty. So this is the federal. So excellent, excellent information for people out there who need this assistance. So, all right.
One of the things too, I'll mention what we've started to do in our case, because there aren't so many family law attorneys by the nature of the fact that everything we're talking about is federal based, that have served in the military. Obviously, they exist. We're here, and so as our firm has grown, we've gotten really high end family law litigators that don't have military background. And the way we solve that, we found it to be a win-win, and to what we call force multiply off of the various JAGs we have here in the firm, is every case has a military consultant who's a former JAG like myself as assigned as the case, even if there's a lead attorney. So as an example, in this office, Olivia Halleck is one of our lead family law litigators, really great at custody cases in particular, but divorces and so forth. So when a case comes along, and any case that has a military connection, in addition to Olivia being the lead counsel, I will be the consultant in the case, where I do that call with the client, I develop the roadmap, and I give it to Olivia, even though she knows most of these issues, now. But we feel like, listen, having that specialized knowledge in every single one of our cases really, and our clients say it, they're like, wow,
Yeah.
So yeah, we practice what we
Awesome.
preach.
Awesome. Absolutely. I've gotten to know you very well, so I know it too. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I certainly know you held your own without Pat. I know both of you work so synergistically together, but this has been fabulous. And for those of you who have tuned in, I know that you have found it to be incredibly beneficial. For those of you who have been watching the replay, you'll probably watch it several times, because this has amazing information. It'll be on the website, patriotslawgroup.com. There's tons of information, and there's a whole library about this series. So please tune in, and also reach out to the law firm for assistance if you need amazing attorneys to help you with this or any of the other family law services that they offer. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another topic about military divorce to help you navigate through this difficult time. So we will be back, but quick disclaimer real quick, Mike, to leave people with. I know everybody's in a different situation, and this is just for education overall. So do you want to leave people with that quick disclaimer?
Yeah, no, I mean, like in every one of these that we do, we want to say, every case is different, and every situation requires its own individualized sort of analysis to determine what's right. There might be some things I said here that I've done in one case, but I don't do it in all cases. And so I really encourage anybody listening to this to reach out to an attorney who has knowledge on this. That can be a legal assistance attorney on base, or if you're working with an attorney and they feel fairly comfortable, still refer them to these types of resources, so you can be sure that they have spotted the issues. I think some of the podcasts that we have even go into that, saying, talk to these 5 things, talk to your lawyer about these 5 things. So anyhow, I hope we helped, but please do not rely on this as your exclusive legal resource.
Great. All right, everybody, we'll be back in a couple weeks, and we hope you will tune in again. Thanks again, Mike.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everybody, and Happy New Year. We will see you in the new year. All right. Talk with everybody soon. Bye.